The former Long Point School will now become the 1904 Long Point Museum and Cultural Education Center. Today, I talk one-on-one with one person who's spearheading this project, John Wright, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. John Wright, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, man.
I know. I appreciate it greatly. I know the last time I actually spoke with you was over the phone for your radio show.
That's right.
And I was in the little basement area of my house in North Charleston. But obviously, you've been extremely busy with African-American history and telling African-American history as the president of
the African-American Settlement Commission. And this commission was formed, Quintin, in 2016. And we were formed primarily because the level of encroachment that's happening here in Mon Pleasant required a grassroots organization to be formed to try to ward off some of that, or at least nothing else, bring attention to it and kind of make everybody else aware of the threat that we're under, essentially, on the settlement community. So in 2016, Charleston County did a 375-page survey that identified the settlement communities and called them that. And ultimately, when I came home in 2013, I was saying all along that we were not donut holes, that we were not unincorporated communities. We were settlement communities, and that was our historic significance. So in 2016, when Charleston County identified the communities as settlement communities, it really validated the push to create this commission, because had we not created this commission, the term settlement would have just been a part of that 375-page survey, and there would not have been a continued push to be called settlement communities and to actually literally have the ability to have Charleston County create a historic preservations commission that I served on, the very first one, and so they can designate these communities, give them a proper designation.
Let me roll all that back for a second, John.
That's right.
What are the threats that is when it comes to encroachments in settlement communities such as Snowden?
Well, the encroachment is overdevelopment, and then not only overdevelopment. We're in such unique communities. I mean, such unique communities, beautiful communities, because ultimately, at the time when these settlement communities were established, they were established in land that were less than desirable land, near the water, where marshes and mosquitoes and infestations, all those things were. So at the time, they were considered to be less than desirable. Well, in 2023, they are waterfront property. And so when we look at the encroachment is coming because of the growth. And when you look at the growth and you look at the most vulnerable parts of Mount Pleasant, they are those settlement communities.
How much growth has happened in Snowden since, obviously, the growth has taken and actually the movement of this particular school?
Since that has happened, in the last 10 years, we have to honestly say that there's been a heavy concentration to change the dynamics of Snowden. One of the reasons, again, we were formed because there were a 20-acre tract that was for sale. And it was being sold by the Olive Branch Church, a black church locally. And what that 20 acres would have done was that 20 acres would have created 61 homes starting at $600,000, which would have dramatically changed the complexion of the community. What you would have then had was a community within a community.
I hate to be too nosy, John.
Let's get it in.
I'm looking around at all the nice houses here in Snowden. So what are the typical prices now?
Well, typical prices based on if you want to move to Snowden now, the land, the dirt can clearly cost you about $200,000. I mean, that's where it is now. A brand new house now can clearly run you up into $475,000, $500,000 easy. Which is absolutely a change from the Snowden that I kind of came to it as a kid while growing up in Rebels Point. But these were all communities that they were so close in proximity, so we all kind of grew up the same way, essentially. And so you think 30, 40 years ago, that price was around $100,000. The land was about $50,000, but it speaks to the growth and how much we have grown. But uniquely, there's a strong effort and most of all the settlement communities here in Mount Pleasant to raise the consciousness of what the communities mean. So therefore, future generations could hopefully keep this movement and to try to maintain these communities.
So let me ask you the obvious question, John. What does Snowden mean to you and the rest of this community?
Well, this community means just as much to me as is any other settlement communities. Why? Is because we all have a unique dynamics, very unique dynamics. But growing up, in my case, I grew up in the Remers Point community. I was born and raised in the Old Village. My family my grandfather's from the Phillip community. My grandmother's from the Hamlin community. So all these different settlement communities comprise of John Wright. And Snowden is unique because this is the community where one of the very last strong whole communities in Mount Pleasant that is still pretty much predominantly still African American.
And with that growth and all that you just mentioned as far as history, John, how do you all fight to keep that stronghold?
Well, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because what we have is in Mount Pleasant uniquely is we're land rich. And we may not have the capital, but we have the land.
Sure.
And ultimately in our communities, we don't, unlike most planned development communities where people go on and live for 6, 7, 8 years and then they move. No, settlement communities, we're in our community for a lifetime. 50 years or better, and never move. Property value has gone from here to there, but that doesn't matter to us. Only thing matters that comfort and being in a community. So, there's a threat of being priced out, whereas that the next generation may not be able to afford to continue living.
How do you hope this eventual museum will bring that comfort to this particular community?
Well, we hope, and I think we're on the right track. Simply because this building was built in the 1800s. When the College of Charleston students did the archaeology study, we then realized that we were sitting on a museum simply because of materials they identified from the 1800s. So it made this building that much more special. But what it also did for us as well is it made us realize the strength and the power that those former enslaved people endured to create an educational institution for us in the 1800s. So when we look at their strength to create an educational institution for us, it only adds value to this building being moved and serving in this Snowden community because it served this community as a community school concept from 1904 to 1953. So I don't think there was no other place in Mount Pleasant that the school could have gone to. And, Quintin, the value is that this is the last black school that predates the Rosenwald system, predates the Civil War, predates Brown versus Board of Education. So this is the last black remaining school of this type. And so I think this is an amazing, tremendous project, but it's a great undertaking as well. Because I think what happens here is that we're going to make our ancestors very proud that we took the time out and did not take the path of least resistance.
What path were you going to take before the idea of the museum came about?
Well, the path was simply just to do nothing with this building, and to just let it try to maintain it and just let it sit and decide what was going to be the best option. But then as research went in and Charleston County came in and they identified it as a museum because of the material, we then knew that we had a chance to do something that Mount Pleasant does not even have. Mount Pleasant doesn't have a museum. And even furthermore, there's no black museums in Charleston County that's owned by a black organization, both the property as well as the building. So we think that we think it's going to be good for not only Mount Pleasant but for Charleston County and the nation in general.
So what strengths right now do you have to get this up and running?
We have the strongest strength we have right now is the community seeing the vision.
Yes.
the vision is what we're riding on now. Our strength is the vision. Now people are now starting to see the vision. Ultimately, October 13th, 2021, when this kind of what they called an ugly building was being driven 2 miles down the road, the vision wasn't there. You couldn't see it. You just couldn't see what was the end, what it would look like in the end. But now that we've done the side in, we have the windows in.
Yes.
People can now see that something special is coming.
Something special is coming. What exactly special will be in this museum?
This will become the Longmont Museum and Cultural Education Center. And Quintin, I think it's exciting because we get a chance to showcase the history of Mount Pleasant beyond the Emancipation Proclamation, the things that we did after that.
Right.
So this building will house all the great things that we did beyond that, the schools that were formed, the churches that were formed, graveyards, cemeteries, all those places that our ancestors currently are, will be housed here, so we can give you a great look into Mount Pleasant's past and in the future.
How did you approach Mount Pleasant's, how did you approach this museum with this idea while looking at Mount Pleasant's past, present, and future?
We approach it simply because there's an untold story. We believe Mount Pleasant Mount Pleasant is an untapped market. There's not a lot of history of blacks in Mount Pleasant. Just simply not. And if we think what we're going to do is going to be good, because there is no other place to tell this story. What better place to do it than a museum and a cultural education center? So we hope, the hope is that by the end of this year, the beginning of next year, Quintin, we'll be looking at the new Longmont Museum and Cultural Education Center.
And I got to ask those questions.
That's right. Let's do it.
What arrangements have been made to accommodate increased traffic onto the very close streets here at the site, as far as flooding and the compatibility with private residents nearby?
Well, we have the mutual agreement was with residents all along, and this building has a low impact, so it's not it's just one standard 70 by 30 building, so it won't have any, which was one of the things that Charleston County ensured that we would not have rain runoff, anything that would potentially create flooding for our neighbors, and so none of that, and in the assessment, none of that we know will be a problem. The fact that the school is off the main road, we're not on the main road, and then we have a egress that brings you into the building, but it's off the main road. So we know when create any problems for traffic, and that has to be a major concern for us, because our hope is when the tours start and they start touring the school, that they're going to come in, but it'll be an opportunity for them to not only see the school, but also have an opportunity to be in a settlement community that was established in 1866.
How many tours do you expect to give from this particular location?
Well, we hope that right now the plan is that we'll be linked with Boone Hall and the Charles Pinckney House, so the tours will be a collaboration of essentially we become an added value to both of those sites by having this as an option for them to tour. And again, the last black school in Mount Pleasant, so with Charles Pinckney being less than a half a mile from here and Boone Hall being less than half a mile, perfect opportunity for us to be a tie-in to tour together.
Oh, absolutely. And how many local African-American organizations and citizens are actually concerned and knowledgeable about this upcoming museum?
Well, we think in the last 2 years, and in particular since 2013 when the school was moved, we think we've driven enough attention to the school that we're not getting national attention. They're getting called. We're getting calls from all over. I mean, offering artifacts, desk, stove, things such as that. So we're getting a lot of attention nationally with the creation of this museum, and so it speaks to the fact that media is important. What you're doing here, what I'm doing with you here today is important because it's going to drive people to get a better understanding of what's here and what the future holds for this building.
Now, with those African-American organizations from a local standpoint, John, how many do you want to bring in to help consult with the plans for this museum?
Well, our organization, African-American Settlement Commission, we comprise of members from 7 different communities here in Mount Pleasant. So we think that in itself is unique because we're not one community. We're comprised of 7 different communities. So that therefore, the energy and all that's going to happen, we're hoping that we'll be able to translate from our board members to the respective communities, so that this site could be used for all of Mount Pleasant. This is the opportunity that we can display Mount Pleasant like no other time ever before.
And I know you talk about the display, and I know you got phone calls recently from people from around the world saying, "Hey, we have artifacts, we have desks and chairs and stuff like that." What else will be on display here?
Primarily, it'll be all. We'll take a look back at what 1904 would have potentially looked like, and we'll have desks, and we'll have chairs, and we'll have an old stove, and so all of that'll be in here. But then we'll also have banners and glass encasing with information about Mount Pleasant, and so we potentially see this to be such a beautiful structure, and what we potentially will see. Is similar to something that we as a commission went to Drayton Hall to visit an old building there, and to see the way that building was constructed. We immediately then said, well, we got ideas now. We got exactly, an idea as to what we will potentially look like.
And John, I wanted to ask you this earlier, but how will this actual museum promote African-American owned businesses if using African-American history and culture to attract additional money to the community?
Well, the idea that this is it'll operate like a business. So this will essentially be a museum that'll operate like a business.
Yes, sir.
So what we ultimately know is that here in Mount Pleasant, what has not been done is we have not done a great job of preserving much in our respective communities. So what you have is when you do our tours in Mount Pleasant, our tours consist of what used to be over there and that used to be over here. Well, this is a physical structure. And we'll be able to do some amazing things here because it's a physical structure, and we can come here. We can bring the black businesses that are in Mount Pleasant to this building, so they can ultimately share with the rest of the world how long they've been in business here in Mount Pleasant. But we will collaborate with all communities and all black businesses and everything in Mount Pleasant that has historic value that previously had not been tapped into.
Well, that brings me to my next question, because you talked about obviously the property value and all that's going on right now. So how does this museum plan to actually address the history of moral, social, and economic inequity?
Well, this museum will do that simply because it's a cultural education center. And by being a cultural education center, it gives you an opportunity to deal with all of those issues. All of those issues are wrapped around education. And so by having an educational institution, a cultural education center, we can then ensure morals and all those social issues that typically may get overlooked, or may not have a location to be discussed and be addressed. We'll do it here.
What are those hard topics when it comes to local issues that nobody else wants to talk about that you'll talk about here?
We'll talk about the whole issue around what we're now seeing as example in the school system with the CRT. There is no such thing. It's American history. And so what we feel that we're going to offer is that the school systems may or may want to take away some education, but right here in this building, we're going to teach that. And we're going to ensure that proper black history is taught and given out of this building, because we're not in a position where we can't be kicked off the land, and we can't lose our contract based on what we share. Right. So we have a unique dynamics here, and we think that this building is going to serve, again, this entire region, and have an ability to discuss things that ultimately, them tough discussions, they'll be had here.
But you talk about obviously the region. Going back to what I wanted to ask you earlier, John, those African-American businesses, how many of those do you want to attract to this area now that you'll have the museum in place?
Well, we want to attract all the African-American businesses in Mount Pleasant. The goal is to have food trucks, which is a new staple, but it's a big part of local business.
Yes, sir.
To have them on site. So when these tours are happening, we can have a black business that's in the Mount Pleasant area generating money as a result of it. We want to have an opportunity to bring in all the local organizations to bring their information here, so that we can do a greater job having the story told about what all is in Mount Pleasant, our culture, our land, our way of life, all that we want to have displayed here, so that we can display and show the world Mount Pleasant. We really want to do it, and I think this building is going to be where it's going to happen.
How will this museum change the quality of life of Snowden and the rest of, say, for instance, Black Mount Pleasant?
Well, it's going to change the quality of life for Snowden dramatically, because it's going to give a chance to tell the story. And it's going to also be a chance to have a historical site. Every community needs a historical site. Every community needs a cultural education center, because in every community there's something unique about them. But this Snowden is going to have that chance to have a cultural education center in its community, which does nothing more than enrich the community in itself.
We all know about, obviously, Remley's Point, Snowden, of course. You just mentioned Phillips and Hamlin communities. But what is that one community that is primarily African American in Mount Pleasant that we just don't know about, that you hope to tell at this museum?
Well, we want to share the story of the 2 Mile community, the Green Hill community.
Sure.
Those communities that don't get the same level of attention that, say, the Snowden community gets, or the Hamlin community, the 7 Mile community gets. So we want to share the story about the 8 Mile community, which you often don't hear much about. So these are all communities that were all in Mount Pleasant, and they're I'm told there's no real story of them. Recently, I was told about how the very first strip mall in Mount Pleasant was owned by a black man.
Wow.
It was in the 7 Mile community. So we want to know what that looked like. Right. We want to know what stores were in there. Sure. So all of that is a part of what we hope to gather as far as discovery. So all that information can be shared here.
Now, I know obviously you have the ideas and discovery, but how much will all this take place? How much is this going to cost you?
Well, this building, when it's all over said and done, we would have done a couple $100,000. We've been very gracious to have Boone Hall as a financial sponsor, and they've donated $200,000, as well as Berkeley Electric, came in early on and donated $25,000. So a lot of that money was used for not only renovation, but also to move the building. Right. But in the end, we think this building will be about $350,000 worth of renovation to get it back to where we want it to be for the museum. But we're very close now, Quintin. I think we're less than $125,000 away from finalization.
And you talk about finalization. So how can we go about helping to donate to your particular museum?
The donations, you can do it through our website at aaschc.com. And if you go to our website, hit the donate page, right, you can see the story on the school, some great pictures that take you all the way back to school where its original site. Yes. Some amazing pictures of College of Charleston students doing an archaeology study for a 3-week period. Because it was important, Quintin, to us to not only have artifacts here in the school that reflects that era, but it was important for us to have artifacts from the old school, from the old site, that we can share in here as well, that says, here's marbles that kids in 1905 played with, that were in the ground. So we think that's special in itself.
And you talk about that school, and obviously you talk about moving the school from obviously one part of Snowden to here. What is the biggest difference about that history that you've learned more about?
I've learned that all those guys, all those men that put in the work to build the school, they may not have had the education I have. But they had the trade and the skills to do something that I can't do. So I think what I learned is that their strength and their ability to have that trade to build not only this school and build a country as they did with free labor, that add value to the fact that I'm educated now. And their trades, their skill enabled me as an educator, and as an educated black man, to advocate, to preserve something that they built. So I think what I've learned on the last couple of years, that they had the strength to build this, and myself and others got the strength to maintain it and keep it moving.
So how long do you hope that this museum will be up and lasting in this community?
this building will be here for 99 years, and that's what our hope is, that 99 years from now, you'll look up and there'll still be a Long Point Museum and Cultural Education Center. Different people running it at that point, though. Right. Maybe a different Quintin, but yeah, 99 years from now, we that's the hope. The hope is that we create enough energy and get enough strong support behind this that the next generation they'll appreciate what we've done.
John Wright, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, and welcome back to Quintin's Close-Up. And I appreciate you, Quintin, for always being such a great host and just doing what you do, because without you, man, a lot of the stories that we hear, we may not have gotten. And, you've been very gracious each time. And I can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'll see you on the radio.
See you on the radio.